Yay!
So, where we left off last time is we had got up to the business roles. So this category, again, is one that a lot of people don't realize actually relates to the music industry. So we have our artist managers, our business managers, booking agents, talent agents, which a lot of people don't even know what that means, promoters, um, festival programmers, venue managers, ticketing managers, sponsorship managers, partnership managers, music publishers, royalty administrators, copyright administrators, music and publishing lawyers, entertainment lawyers, accountants, financial controllers, and HR/PR. Well, I guess we could start with royalties. Royalties is something that a lot of fans don't understand. I have seen multiple people who get confused when artists are signed with one label that might be like a smaller local label, but then they're also with UMPG or Universal Music Publishing Group. Universal Music Publishing Group sorts out licensing, sync, where the music is going in terms of advertising, in terms like you know, that one Shawn Mendes ad that we heard all the time, which was a car ad, or when Taylor Swift was had her music on almost every episode of The Summer I Turned Pretty, that sort of a thing is licensing, but then they may not necessarily be with that same label. So that's two different teams, which a lot of people don't always realize or understand. Um, Talent agents and booking agents work quite closely, and they're usually in charge of where the person might play, how they might promote themselves. Um, for example, as we discussed last week, tours are usually planned years in advance. So they are working on, all right, for example, if you have a small little artist, you're not going to try and sell out an arena because that's just stupid. You're going to lose money. So they are figuring out what makes sense for their artist, what makes sense for the audience, what locations they need for which countries and stuff. Um, and they are then working around the band's team. So whether that's advertising so that they know what to put on the posters and stuff like that. Um,
Partnerships are, it's in the name. You partner with a brand and you promote something. So, like, for example, it's not necessarily a direct um, example of something currently going on, but say an artist wants to collaborate with Coca-Cola, then a part of their show or a part of their advertising or a part of their marketing or something will involve the Coca-Cola branding, be that in every visual advert they are in, they are holding a can of Coca-Cola. And these partnerships usually come with terms that you cannot work with similar things. So if you are then spotted out with a can of Pepsi, it's over. Britney Spears had a huge partnership with one of them. I can't remember which one, and she was spotted out with the other one, and all of her contracts got cut, everything. She lost loads of money, whatever. But yeah, branding partnerships is like the easiest thing to explain.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into the business of music, which a lot of people don't realize. So it's very important that um, we see everyone behind the music. Um, then this one is really important to me because you would not have the music and the musicians without the education and community around the music. So you've got music teachers, vocal coaches, um, instrument tutors, workshop facilitators, community music groups, youth music mentors, choir directors, all of those sort of things. Every one of your favorite artists at some point is going to mention one of these people who have shaped their journey. You don't just get an artist that randomly pops up who's like, "Oh, I just decided today that I'm going to sing on stages." Like they've had some form of training, some form of practice. Um, the world doesn't just throw out an artist, spit them out on stage and go, "Here you go." And even if they did find fame at an early age, they would then end up finding vocal coaches and stuff after that. So they are very important keys to the music industry. In New Zealand, you usually do have some form of vocal coach, or um, a lot of musicians in New Zealand, once they do get big, will then go and volunteer at some sort of youth music training or something. But then also, I can think of a few places or a few things that aren't necessarily like for the big name. Um, for example, my brother, who is in a little local band, he used to take drumming lessons at Good Time Music Academy, which is local for me, not so local for him anymore. They're still around, and every so often you hear of someone who did get training there. Um, yeah, there are a lot of youth music programs around here. Um, some end up leading to musicians who I mean, it's so funny. Some of the musicians who I used to see around these classes are now musicians that I'm promoting. But then there's also like youth music programs, as in like um, music therapy sort of stuff. So some of those people will then go into becoming a musician, but a lot of them just sort of use it as a way to cope and build community. But I think that's still so important because music isn't just I'm doing this to get like a minute of fame. It's so much more than that. The next category is physical music. Um, so this is one I will admit I know a lot less about. I've seen a few little inside things, but I don't really understand fully how it works. But you've got your vinyl mastering engineers, your pressing plant operator, your manufacturing manager, your packaging designer, CD production specialist, cassette production specialist, and quality control inspectors. There's a lot more roles that go into that. These are just the ones I can name because, again, I don't know much about how that side of things works. Um, but they're incredibly important. You're not just randomly going to have a vinyl drop from the sky and boom, it just magically was made like that. Um, if you ever have the time, it's there are some really interesting documentaries on how physical media is made, and I highly recommend looking into it because you will gain a whole new appreciation for how that works. It's not really something I can talk about, but hugely important.
Yeah, I imagine it's just similar to most stores process. So like if you think of like your average grocery store or your retail store or whatever, you've got like the CEOs, the CFOs, the area managers, the managers and whatever. They're obviously not going to be labeled those things because I'm thinking of a different thing. But I imagine you've got like your big bosses, your bosses that do the communications, because a lot of it as well is going to be a lot of physical media gets made in advance, obviously, hence pre-orders of CDs and stuff. So a lot of it is to do with privacy as well. And having a tight-knit team to avoid leaks.
Okay, so the next category is radio and streaming. So you have your radio producers, music programmer, playlist editors, streaming partnerships manager, editorial curators, music data analyst, and you've got your presenters, the people who obviously are talking throughout the show. You have talent management. Kind of, it doesn't have that exact name, but it's very similar to talent management. It's like who's bringing on the guests, who's bringing on the people who are going to talk during the show. So there's a lot that goes on there. And they are very important because when was the last time you discovered a new song? It was probably either streaming or the radio, most likely, unless it was word of mouth from a friend or something. Um, but a lot of music does get discovered from radio play. A lot of fans get involved. You know, how many times have we called the same number over and over again to try and get concert tickets? No. Me personally, I have every New Zealand radio station on speed dial in case there's tickets I'm trying to win. Um, so there's a lot that goes into that. And it's also broadcasting is a really misunderstood um, career path, I guess, because there are a lot of people who will study broadcasting who don't go on to become a radio presenter, but there is so much more behind that. And then also in today's day and age, there are a lot of people who have studied broadcasting who might. There's a lot of people in New Zealand who have gone to like the big broadcasting school, and they haven't necessarily gone into radio, but they've gone into the wider RNZ sort of overall media company, I guess. And they either have their own podcast or their own live stream. It's kind of a way to explain it, where it's not like on traditional radio, but it's kind of online 24/7 that you can tap into. I know during the Eras tour we had like 24/7 Taylor Swift. We have 24/7 news. We have um, like a channel that is traditional Waiata, which is not on traditional radio frequencies, but you can tap into it on your phone. So I think radio and streaming and broadcasting is an area that's really growing a lot in New Zealand. And because of that, there are so many misunderstood roles.
Yeah, obviously a lot of what we see is the Greg Jameses, the Nick Grimshaws, like all of these like big Annie Mac, all of these big names. Um, and we don't always see the teams that kind of pull it all together. Because yes, whilst these people are the face of radio, which is like a weird thing to say, because radio is typically audible, but um if you've ever visited the BBC Broadcasting House, you will know that there are thousands of people in that building. And we see on the radio side of it, we see maybe 10 of them.
Yeah.
Like you've got like in the same way with live shows, you've got your audio engineers, your lighting, whatever. You have all of that as well for radio because your mics have to get checked, you have to cue all the songs. It's just like every little role is so intense and overlaps with other roles. Maybe not roles, maybe like skill sets. But yeah, there's just a lot of overlap and a lot of things that I think generally people don't realize kind of go into it. Like I think to to dumb it down, I think a lot of people think that, oh, you go on radio and you speak into a mic and it's done. Like, no, just
Yeah.
no. Even with what we're doing with the live stream, the podcast, we're filming it way in advance, and then Jade's editing it and clipping it and whatever, and there's a whole process to just us chatting like this.
I don't think people understand just how hard that is because we shoot on a Tuesday and then I've got to go and get my article up because again, I wear many, many hats. Um, But typically, I will only have the time to edit the Friday night, and these go up Saturday morning. So I end up pulling an all-nighter because I'm sitting there. I'm having to make sure that because we're in two different locations, that our lighting is actually even. Because 9 times out of 10, I'm a big red blob and Toya is not. So I'm having to pull my saturation down to match Toya's. And then on top of that, our microphones are typically never equal. So I'm having to chop both of our audios and turn one person up and the other person down. Why they don't record equal, I don't know, because they sound equal right in this very moment. But um, Zoom's a weird app, I guess, in terms of recordings. And then anytime there's something that we need to edit in, for example, anytime Toy or I in this recording say we'll insert that on screen, well, if it's Friday night and one of us forgot to actually drop it in the messages, then I have to cut that section where we mentioned said thing. Um, So there's a lot more moving pieces that go into radio streaming, broadcasting, putting any form of media out there. It's also, I had to have a laugh. I had to have a laugh when it was assumed that literally day of we could change up what we were going to do for Ashton Owen's birthday post on 5 Sauce ANZ. Because if you didn't know, that is also owned by the Groovy Moo. Surprise. Um, Day of we tried to push out the cowboy hats for Ashton Irwin, but no one in the team had a cowboy hat. So when I understand when people really want something and they want it right then and there, but it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. Um, this one is a fun one, which I am going to hand this category to you because you studied it. Event management. Would you like to do your own list?
Oh God, what can I even write? So yes, as Jade said, I studied live event management at university. That was a 3 year long course, and we delved into so many things. We went from legal to sync to contracts to festivals to when I tell you a big part of live event management, unfortunately, is figuring out toilets, is figuring out waste control.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Well, I knew it was obviously a part of it. I had no idea how important figuring out waste control is at live events. And I praise the people who have that job because that's not a bit of me. Um, but yeah, we covered a lot, which is kind of the reason that I have such a big respect for the music industry, but because before studying it, I had respect, but I didn't know how deep everything was. I didn't know how versatile everything was. I didn't know how intense everything was. But there is a role for everyone, no matter what, even if it's not your role. Um, like even as simple as being a photographer, everyone's like, oh yeah, you take photos. And it's like, yeah, but I also travel, I take photos, I take care of my kid, I edit, I then manage my own social medias. I have to cross post everything. And then with that, sometimes it means creating artwork like prints or key rings or photo cards or whatever. Like there are then multiple alleys. I could just take photos and then send them off to an editor to get them edited, and then send them off to a social media manager to have them post it, to then send them off to a different artist to have them printed. But no, I do all of it because it's just a part of the job. Like you're not just doing one thing, even if your role is just one thing. Um, which kind of just generally speaks for event management in itself. You're kind of just the head of the whole thing. Like, for example, if you're going to a concert and you're the event manager for that show, you're making sure everything runs smoothly from loading in to setting up to loading out, everything in between, food, drink, waste, crowd control, liaising, communications, sound checks, audio, lighting. You are the person that even if you're not doing these jobs, it is your job to make sure that these jobs are getting done,
Yeah.
which just means you have to be in a million places at the same time all at once.
Yeah. And probably not to the same extent as you, but I have done a bit of event management in the past for local events, and you, we need to give more credit to people who do that because I've said this for almost every category, and I'll say this for the categories to follow, but people in the creative industry wear so many hats. Um, I know that when I was managing teams for events, live events, um, it was just a little local festival, and all of us, we had like bags over our shoulder of like duct tape, safety pins, sewing kits, cables and cables and cables around our neck. Like, do you need an HDMI? Do you need this? Um, you have people in high-vis suits going, toilets are there, and you've got a medical team, and there's so much that goes into it, and there's so much that can go wrong. Just one little thing that's slightly out of shape, and at least a good 10 people are needing to get involved. Um, that's that's something that, especially in small areas, I think is not so understood. Um, I know there was one event I was running where the check I was the event manager, so I had to sort out the kitchen crew, I had to sort out um talent and make sure they were backstage at the right time. One thing in the check broke, and the check leader had to run home for a family emergency, and everything went wrong with the check because suddenly it was just me while I'm also answering all these other questions. Like there there needs to be an understanding that especially I've seen it so many times recently where fans get upset with one person who's probably not even the right person. There's at least a good 10 people running around who are super stressed trying to fix it. So standing there yelling at them is not going to do anything apart from stress them out and put more pressure on them.
Can also be said a lot across a lot of different scenarios as well. Like if you'd be screaming at the top of your lungs to a band member or an artist, like please do this, or please add these dates, or please address this, or usually they're kind of in a catch 22 and they are stuck there, like they can probably see it and they can probably be like, I'm trying, because that also has to go through so many people and so many avenues before anything can actually be done and said. And it's the same for live events. You can't just go, hey, let's do this instead. It has to change in so many different ways before you can then actually go, okay, it's changed. Cool, it's done.
Yeah. So on that note, um, I love it when on Fan Fridays you guys comment about five stars and stuff. And I also think it's funny to pretend that if five stars were to have a second date, where would it be? Um, please don't DM us asking us to personally reach out to the boys because, as we've covered, I don't have that power. I don't. And yes, I would love a Wellington show and an Auckland show and a Christchurch show and a Dunedin show and every place you guys have mentioned, but I don't personally have the power to do that. I don't. Um, I cannot hit up Andy DeLuca tomorrow and be like, five people asked me, so show up at this time. I don't have that power. Um, another one, because I also get this one. I'm picking up the microphone for this one. We are not starting drumming lessons with Ashton Irwin. I do not know the guy, and we do not have music lessons as part of what we offer. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Um, I get one more DM about it. Um, but I hope with the series as well. I hope that with this series that we've done these 2 weeks, that the takeaway is there's so much more that goes into it, and you can't just immediately demand you want this thing and expect it to happen. Because look at how many years of planning it takes. Look at how many people are involved. Um, we hear you, we see you, we know what you want, but it doesn't just happen overnight.
And if you are interested in any of the roles that we've mentioned or anything to do with any of the roles, just honestly just research it. The answers are out there. You can just reach out to people or research it on Google or whatever it is. If there's something that goes, oh, that sounds kind of fun, or like, oh, that sounds really intimidating, I need to know more about that, or like, oh, I don't quite understand that. The answers are out there, and it is really interesting to learn about. Like, I spent my 3 years at university learning about all of this, and it was genuinely fascinating. Like, I've got some really good books about it as well, which is a little bit nerdy question mark. Um, still have my like university books, but I enjoy reading them. It's really fun to learn about staging and crewing and touring and everything. And it is genuinely, even if it's just a passion project for you, it is something you should take at least somewhat seriously in terms of understanding the fundamentals of what goes into at least the one thing you want to do.
I think that's also something that I know I said we were going to wrap up. Side note, if you were interested in it, go to the library, go look at the books. The amount of times that
Mhm.
I have sat there, when I was into concert photography, I was checking out like armfuls of books from all my favorite concert photographers, even if it was just sitting through their galleries. Um, Write down what you notice that you love about different roles. Write down anything. I have tons of work notebooks, but I have one and it's called Things That Inspired Me Today. That's my page that I've drawn up. And I write down anything from I really liked the lighting and coloring of this photo shoot to pages and pages of exactly why I love at least five different music videos directed by the same person. Um, but also things you don't like, you can write down. For example, I've talked about a specific blur that I don't quite like with concert photography. Why does it make me feel that way? Um, Tours, what if I notice that a tour was done really well, something that I really liked? Just take all that information in, watch documentaries, read books about it, because there's so much more to learn. And if you have a genuine passion for it and keep going back to it, there might be something in that. That might actually mean something. Did for my journey. So that's been this week's episode of The Professional Fan. Have a groovy week.